Welcome to Peace of Mind for Pet Parents, the podcast by BrightHaven Caregiver Academy. I'm Gail Pope.
And I'm Karen Wylie. And together we're here to support you in navigating life with your aging or ill pets. We know how deeply you care for your beloved companions, and we're here to offer guidance, understanding, and resources for this meaningful journey.
Each episode, we'll explore topics that address the daily challenges, emotional realities, and choices you face as a pet parent, helping you and your pets find peace, comfort, and joy. Whether it's making sense of a new diagnosis, adjusting to changing needs, or simply seeking a place to feel understood, you're not alone. Thank you for being here with us.
Hello, and welcome back to Peace of Mind for Pet Parents. I'm Karen Wylie, here today with my wonderful co-host and founder of BrightHaven, Gail Pope. Today, we're having one of my favorite kinds of conversations, the ones where we look beyond the symptoms of our pets, beyond our caregiving tasks, and into the deeper meaning of our caregiving journey with our pets. Today, we're going to talk about what animals teach us about life through the process of dying. These kind of lessons are tender and sometimes profound. Gail, you said many times that your animals have shaped who you are as a person.
Oh, was that a question?
That was your question. Would you like me to let me repeat it?
So funny.
Gail, you've said many times that your animals have shaped who you are as a person. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Gosh, I hadn't expected that kind of a question. It's huge. It's really huge. And wow, it takes me back years and years. Probably back to childhood, growing up, always animals, generally only maybe 1, 2, or 3 at a time. But then it takes me straight into the BrightHaven era where it was many more animals. God, there's so many things that I think have changed me into who I am today. I think kindness, gratitude, generosity, all of the things that as humans we strive for, but we don't necessarily get led to follow along a particular path. For me, those things all came together. I don't know if this makes sense, but in the path of the work that I do, on the one hand, caring for and loving and helping animals, and on the other side, as they've taught me, to duplicate that, to help, to care for and love, or offering loving kindness to people. So it's a continuum of all the things that they've taught me. I guess in particular, through the work of BrightHaven, perhaps most of my learning has come through being with animals towards the end of life and at the end of life, when care for yourself is increasing perhaps, but care for the animal is decreasing. So you're still compelled to be with them, but it switches into a different way. It perhaps brings out different parts of you at that time. Does that make sense?
It does make perfect sense to me, because in my experiences of caregiving as well, there is so much of a give and take. As the pet's body changes, therefore, what I need to do to provide physical care is always something I have to adapt over time. As that is happening, I also get a sense of spiritually and energetically something changing, which prompts me to be thinking and feeling differently through the process as well. I think what I most begin to experience at end of life is I'm more present with those animals. We talked about this last week, where you're spending so much time with them every step of the way. You're monitoring them to make sure you're not missing something. So there's a little bit of a worry that goes along with perhaps the motivation to find more time, more consistent time to be with them and checking in on them. But I think it does prompt me to be more present and to be aware of what that means to be present, which again, like I just mentioned, ties in very much to what we were talking about in last week's podcast, because our animals do live in the now. So to them, every moment counts. because they're not thinking of a past and they're not thinking of a future. Although I do certainly have the sense that when an animal does enter an active dying process, that they have an understanding that their body is changing, that their physical abilities are changing, and that helps them begin making a spiritual transition. If I think throughout my life of what I have learned about spirituality, my animals' deaths were what actually led me into a greater awareness, probably because the love that you have for them is so immense, and therefore the loss is so big that you really need to find a way to have peace with their loss. For a lot of people, that begins to allow you to think about how to connect with them after they have left their bodies. So for me,
Yes.
I'd say the greatest lessons from my animals who I would lose were that how much they taught me about spirituality and in that way just living differently. Once you start to understand that there is something beyond this physical life, you're not the same person. You have hope. You have a belief or an optimism that there is always something beyond. I don't think I am as afraid of things. And I don't mean just what would cause death, but I don't think of mistakes that I make as mistakes are part of just another lesson along the road.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's what animals have done for me throughout their dying process. Obviously, we learn different things by the joy in everyday life with them, but those lessons certainly continue as they begin to leave this world
Yeah.
when they're gone.
That was all amazing. And it really underscores what I was thinking, that one of the greatest lessons that they teach us is how to accept the circle of life and death itself. And particularly in their dying processes, I think I've come to obviously be less scared of death, the actual process of death, a belief. I think I was scared of death, as most people are. But then that door opened a crack and I started to, ooh, this is a different word. Oh, wow, this changes the way I think. And little by little, it got stronger and more heavily underlined by experiences until I reached a point of being a lot more comfortable with the idea and a lot less scared of death and a lot more grateful to the animals that shared that process with me. Then maybe came back and talked to me with an animal communicator, or odd things happened at home that gave me comfort and a feeling, yeah, you are still here with me.
Have you ever had the experience where an animal's presence transforms the energy in the room?
You mean presumably after their death?
Before or after, or on the way?
I was just going to say, and then we've got on the way. I think during the dying process, there is a particular point perhaps where I am very aware. Oh, this is an interesting thing that I've never actually talked about or really thought about, so I may ramble. But the number of times that I have been with an animal who is in the dying process towards the end, and I'm focusing primarily on this being in front of me, this beautiful being who is still a thing, if you like. It's a body that I've loved for a very long time with a beautiful inhabitant. But now all of a sudden, my vision, my view starts to split. I'm still seeing the body. I'm aware of some kind of mind connection. Then I'm also aware, is it spirit? Is it soul? But there's a split. I don't think I've ever even really acknowledged that feeling before. I guess as the spirit starts to leave the body, I've never been aware that I could see both or be with both. Maybe that's a better term. Have you?
Yes. And I think that's another one of the lessons for me that animals have provided because I have had the experience since also with humans. But my animals were the first to help me understand that when I'm caring for them, when they're in palliative care or hospice care, let's say the last 6 months of their life, the last month or two of their life and so forth, and things are changing. But I'm still mostly focused on caring for the physical caregiving aspect of it, taking care of their body. What does their body need? As their physicality declines, I begin to sense their spirit more and their soul. That's when, for me, hospice care is I'm caring for them on two levels. I'm caring
Yes.
for their physical body, which is in decline because they are getting ready to completely leave their body. But their spirit, their soul is still mostly in their body. I have always thought, and I know you and I have talked about this before, that toward the end, let's say last few days, last week or so, of a hospice type death where they're gradually declining, I'll see these pets staring at a space on the wall where there's nothing to actually look at, but they're very engaged and they're just staring at the wall. I equate that to be similar to the deathbed visions that humans
Yes.
describe to their family members. Then the family members are usually very upset and talk to the nurses about, oh my God, my mom is having a conversation with her sister, but she died 17 years ago. How can this be? Sometimes the nurses used to say, oh, it's just how the drugs are working in their body. Don't pay any attention to it. She's fine. There's a lot more nurses these days that are ready to say sometimes it's almost like they have one foot in the next world while they still have one foot in this one. I think that happens for our pets as well. So seeing that and feeling that the dying process is the separation of the soul from the body, but for a while in our day-to-day care, we are addressing two levels. We're supporting the soul's transition and what is needed there, but we're also still caring for the physical body.
I have an interesting question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, this is taking me back to Fraser's journey. And I know I've talked about him often, but do you believe that during the dying process, the soul can leave the body? Not necessarily only the dying process, but do you believe the soul can leave the body and then step back into it during that process?
You mean have an out-of-body experience the way some humans do?
No, I'm just saying that imagine this is what happened with Fraser and with some others. Here we have our beloved lying, dying, and then they die. So, yes, the soul has stepped out, right? However, we know from experience that the soul can then step back in again. Oh, maybe I left a bit early. It's not time for my appointment. Oh, now I'm breathing again. Oh, this body's strange. Oh, I'll be okay. And then at some later time, they step out and step back in again.
Oh, I think that's very possible. Again, I so wish they could just tell us all about this. None of mine have communicated that very clearly in a way that I understand. But we do know that humans have near-death experiences where their body dies and they can rise above where they are in an emergency room or where they are at home in their bed and they can see themselves on the bed. And then they have some experiences where they will talk about seeing a light, a tunnel,
Yeah.
seeing dear relatives that have passed on. And then within 3 to 5 minutes, they're back in the body. So why wouldn't that be possible for our pets? I believe anything that we experience as humans that our pets are likely to experience or more. They just seem more connected and more plugged into more than we are.
Without doubt. It's just fascinating for me. I hadn't really thought of it as a parallel to the human experience. And some of them have, when everything stopped, they've gone and literally in a very short space of time. Oh, actually, he's okay. He's breathing again. This happened to me recently when Andy died and when
Right.
Rosie died too. But with Fraser, it was very different because he stepped out for longer periods of time and over several months too.
Wow.
So that took us into the spooky realm. But again, it's a lesson for us to understand that life does go on. And we're so focused on life in that body that we don't tend to actually open up the conversation about life not in that body, how connected maybe the spirit still is to that body or to the caregiver, the family, the best friend, the cat next door. There's still a connection that should be embraced, perhaps. I don't know how or how better to do that. But I think the more we can actually open up these kinds of conversations, because they're invaluable, aren't they? We all learn from them, don't we?
Absolutely. I think realizing that I am caring for two parts of my pet, their soul and their body, is what allows me to look differently at death. As you were saying, not be as afraid of it. I wonder how I will die, but being what's going to happen afterwards, I don't worry about. Because I have a sense of them, and mostly it's feeling their energy field, their aura. I feel it dissipate. I feel it lessen as they get closer to physical death. And it's what wakes me up in the middle of the night if they have left, because I will physically wake up with a start. I'll look at the clock and I'll just have this sense. Within 10 seconds, I'm aware, oh my God, he's left. And then I have to get up and check.
You hear those stories as well. And that reminds me to say something to you that I know I've probably said before. Why don't you explore the gift you have of mediumship? Oh, I could ask you so many questions. I could talk to so many animals, and to just be able to have that gift of connection to help others. Oh my gosh, it must be
Oh,
this wonderful thing.
I do feel it's a gift. I feel very grateful that I have had the experiences, the training that have allowed me to realize and understand that there are some things I can do. It also has taught me there are some things I can't do very well yet. I never say that I'll never be able to do it because we're all born being able to do this stuff. Of being able to relate psychically to our animals who have passed, our friends and relatives who have passed on. But life takes over and life starts demanding logic and analysis and all that. We tend to not have the perceptive side of us rewarded or recognized or encouraged. So I'm grateful that I have these opportunities because of what it does, the comfort it gives me with death. That doesn't mean I don't sob my eyes out and heart out when I'm losing one of my babies. But again, I have an understanding of where they're going and what it's going to feel like for them because I get little glimpses of it. I don't have a very consistent connection. I don't hold a consistent vibration or frequency that allows me to connect. So that's what I would need to work on. But I can just stop writing or doing podcasts or that kind of.
No.
For me, it has required to really, I want to say, downsize my life, but fewer tasks, few analytical responsibilities so that I can spend more time in the perceptive part of my life. Although I see some things and I hear even fewer, basically it's what I feel energetically and then know from what I feel. So that's going back to what started this particular thread of conversation is that if I have gone to bed for 2, 3 hours because I think they're sleeping and everything's okay, then it's like there's some energetic force in the world, in my world, is different. It's off. And it's, oh, they've gone. Then I go and I'll find that they have, in fact, gone. So for me, it's very physical. But that's also then what allows me to feel them when they come back.
Yes, I think it's interesting that animals have clearly taught us, they teach all of us who love them so many different lessons. Sometimes we don't even really understand them or remember them at the time, but they bring value to our lives as we get older. And then you reach my age, and suddenly there's not enough time. There are all these things that I'm excited about and I want to learn more about. I know there's not enough time necessarily in the future, but in my everyday, because every day is full up. So it's always going to be, oh, tomorrow and tomorrow. Oh God, it's tomorrow again. But I guess that's what the soul is saying. It's okay, slow down, do your best now, do it with lots of love and those baby steps. Then when you come back next time, you'll be at the starting gate ready to go.
That's the thing. Some days I'm a little behind you in age, but I'm certainly at
A lot.
what, what, 12 years. But there's still less time ahead of me than what I have behind me. So when you start to have that awareness, it's almost some things are I'm just going to have to learn when I come back in the next life. There are some things there's just not going to be enough time to do. I think in terms of what I have learned and what my animals have taught me about life while caring for them as they die is very much being present, like we talked about more in last week's episode, but it still is very true. And you also brought up the point about the whole circle of life, and they accept it completely. So often we want to fight. We're fighting for them to stay. We're fighting for our relatives to stay. I think that's normal and desirable because if we love them, of course, we want them with us. But they don't really leave us either. That is a lesson from them, from the animals. I can't say I got that from caregiving with humans. This learning came from the animals, and then I can understand human death better because of the animals. Because you cared for your mom in hospice.
I was just thinking about that. I was with my dad when he died, but not for a long period of time because he was in England and I flew back for the last 6 weeks of his life. But yes, I was a caregiver during that time. Interestingly enough, I didn't understand death as I understand it now. I'd reached a point where I wasn't scared of it and I was comfortable to be with him, which was a great gift given to me by the animals.
Yes, of course.
Reached, and I was still very much immersed in the belief that life goes on. And maybe that's what helped me through that period because the rest of the family weren't, and they were very scared. They were facing the wall that was approaching that they couldn't get through, and it was a dreadful thing. But with my mum, that was much more recent. The caregiving part was the hardest part. Emotionally, I knew it was her time and that she was going to be leaving at all levels. I wasn't particularly worried about what might happen and how she would die. I had a trust that things were working out just as they were meant to. Her caregiving and the way her body closed down slowly to allow the spirit to step out. That was the hard part for me. She was my mum and I loved her. That was hard emotionally. But then she also remained very much herself too. She had a very different kind of sense of humor and that would spark every now and again. And I'd be sitting really glum and, oh God, I wonder what's going to happen next. She'd say something quite funny and it would just bring me back to hold on, let go of all of that. Be with this person who you love, who is actually teaching you some lessons here.
Continuing to teach all the way through. Do you think that caring for our animals through the dying process, through their illness and dying, do you think it reveals a different kind of love for us to learn from?
Ooh, I don't know how to express this. I think there is a general love that we feel easily. It's in our mind, our brain. We feel it, we understand it. But then there is a different love that we may suddenly acknowledge with someone we thought we loved, but suddenly it's at a different level. It's a heart love. It's an emotion that has settled itself deep inside and won't let go. And that feels a little different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does to me because there comes a time in the dying process of my animals, and see if this makes sense to you, that I recognize that they're close to leaving and that I have a responsibility to help their soul on its way.
Oh,
It's not just the physical caregiving. And I can know it in my head that this is part of their soul's journey as they will ultimately release their soul from their physical body. But there comes a time in the dying process where it's like that importance shifts and they're more out of their body than they are in it. I just become aware that it's time for me to stop being in my grief and not wanting them to leave. It's my job, it's my role, it's my responsibility to help their soul go.
I just had another revelation here, and I actually scribbled it down so I wouldn't forget. But what we're talking about now has gone to not only the heart, but the heart and soul. We put them together, the heart and soul connection, just what you were talking about as part of the journey, but then it suddenly becomes obvious. That takes me to, you must remember the silver cord story. And that completes the journey, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Wow.
Because
Because his heart and soul is twined, letting go in one way, but creating a forever link forever.
And I no longer need to cut the cord because I let the cord go.
You let it go. It's time.
Because I understand it's time. But part of that is that I also understand that they can come back and that there's ways to connect. I know I've shared this several different times, but it's 2.5 years since Mr. Hope died. All I have to do is mention his name in front of my two Aussies, and they're immediately looking up at the ceiling.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm sitting here thinking, I think we're actually on the edge of a new conversation to actually explore that a little further as when that cord is let go or it's cut, how that presence is still with us. I don't know how to elucidate quite what I'm saying, but it's stepping into what is and how can we live with the heart and soul connection that we've always had in the lifetime with this animal. How does this continue now? How does this go on? It's stepping into an unknown territory.
I think you're right that if we don't stop here at this point and promise to continue this conversation and look at where the journey continues to go, we would probably be another half hour or hour. So perhaps come to a pause here and promise that we'll come back to talk a little bit more about this. We have been working on a new booklet about soul-centered pet care and how it allows you to see the death of your pets a little differently. So I think that's rubbing off on us. So we will come back to this next week.
All right.
So we thank you for being with us this week and hope that some of what we've described to you is something that you have experienced or would like to experience. And we'll talk more about it next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Peace of Mind for Pet Parents. We hope today's episode has offered you support and insight as you care for your aging or ill pets.
Remember, it's not just about the end, it's about living well at every stage of life. To continue your journey with us, explore more resources at BrightHaven Caregiver Academy's website, brightpathforpets.com, where you'll find guides, assessments, and a caring community of pet parents like you.
Until next time, may you and your pets find comfort, connection, and peace in every moment. Take care.